Thanks for joining us from the Ohio AgNet Voice You Know with the News You Trust studio, sponsored by BASF, where you can count on the trusted performance of Olivo seed treatment to protect your soybean crop. Last check of the rain gauge here at my studio, we were just a little over 2 inches. Radar looked like there could have been quite a variation continuing, but that's definitely going to slow some things down locally. Joining me is Andy Spiker. He's from John Glenn High School, and we catch up at a field day. The students seem to be very actively involved. Why did you bring students to this event, the Heritage Cooperative H-Plot in Waterford, Ohio?
Well, every time I get an advantage to take a student out of the classroom and get their hands dirty and actually experience something in real life, that's a great experience for all the students to do. So this day kind of fell in our lap, and we went ahead and jumped on the bandwagon, and we're here.
The kids over here at one point, I heard them were getting pretty loud, and I think they were trying to find a 4-pod bean. Now, they really didn't know what that was when they started, but they were excited to go look for the opportunity.
They like getting out there, and, some of them were a little timid to try to get the pod off the plant to begin with, and then they were trying to get it opened up. And then once they start doing it, they just kind of fall right to place, and it's just really interesting to see them interact with other people.
Well, and interact with the idea that this is a way you could do a yield test out in a field, measure a certain area, and come up with your calculations. And all of those things are part of learning, but in the big picture are important.
Absolutely. One of the students, they did a yield test. They only came up with 100 and some bushels of corn. And I said, that may not be quite right. Let's recheck where we counted. 12 rows around wasn't quite enough, so they counted 16 the next time. And they said, how did those extras appear on there? So when they did that, even double checking their math, can't get much more real life than this.
And he had to use math, so we actually are meeting some of the science qualifications, if we will, and math. But the bottom line is, a lot of them maybe have never stepped in a bean field. And even here in Southeast Ohio, you would think, well, everybody has at one time or another, and that's not the case.
That's one of the beautiful things about agriculture education these days is we do draw a wide realm of people. There's people from right in town that haven't seen the bean field, and I have some other kids who farm several hundred acres. So bring them all down here to a day like this. Sometimes the different kids are answering questions for the agronomist that you wouldn't necessarily expect, and sometimes the questions they ask are a little different than what you might expect as well.
Since you've been with us more than a couple years, how far into the school year after you get back do they come up with examples that happen here?
It lasts for a long time. Lots of contests that we go. The agronomy contest that we do isn't until the spring of the year, so we're making references back to this day from the diseases clear into April and May. For me as a classroom teacher also, the ability to say, hey, remember when we saw that frog eye leaf spot on the soybeans, or we saw the rust on the corn? And not everybody from my whole school's here, but the ones that are here raise their hand and say, I remember that. And I picked a leaf on the corn plant that had that.
So look at the sprayer out here and go, that thing is 80 or more feet wide, and it treats the entire area the same.
Right. We came from the drone section right before this, and they were talking about spraying 20 feet with that drone. So now that they're sitting there kind of looking at the sprayer and going, well, I bet you can cover a little more ground with this than you can the drone. So, yeah, everything that they see is just kind of a new eye-opening experience for them here today.
And that's what the sponsors, Heritage Cooperative, were hoping for. I've been visiting with Andy Spiker from John Glenn High School. Today's weather brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Here's the forecast.
We've got a little moisture trying to work through the Buckeye State today. I'm Chief Meteorologist Ryan Martin. Let's take a look at that Ohio Ag Weather Update. Nothing dramatic here, nothing that is surprising. Moisture worked in overnight and is going to continue to slide east and southeast through the state today. We'll start to see clearing here this afternoon in the northwestern parts of the state. It may take through the overnight to get done with everything everywhere else. All in, all done. I think we're looking for a tenth or two in a few areas of the state, all the way up to 1.5 inches in the south. I-70 southward could be on the line to get a few thunderstorms out of this here today. So moisture is going to be almost everywhere, 90% coverage of good rains here overall. We get into a drier forecast window then starting tomorrow on through the end of the week. Tomorrow and Thursday in particular are going to be looking quite cool. Very chilly here. I won't even rule out a little bit of patchy frost in a few areas like northwestern parts of Ohio up closer to the Michigan line. I don't think it's a big story, but we're going to mention it anyway just because you're hearing about it probably from somebody else on social media. Boy, howdy, those guys have been really amped up on frost and freeze here recently. In any case, we're cool for 2 days, Wednesday, Thursday, and then we start to warm up toward the end of the week. As the warmer air comes up from the south, we may filtering out a few spits and sprinkles in west and northwestern parts of Ohio overnight Friday night into Saturday. But then we're back to fully dry air for Saturday midday right on through Sunday, Monday, Tuesday of next week. Bigger weather systems coming together in the Central Plains Wednesday forward next week. First one misses us to the west a bit, but I think we take a direct hit late Friday night into next Saturday. I'm meteorologist Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. In South Korea, the pizza chain Pizza Alavo was looking to add something new to its menu when it turned to the U.S. Meat Export Federation for assistance. Ellie Sung, U.S. MEF Senior Marketing Manager for Food Service in Korea, suggested U.S. pork sausage. After extensive product research and taste testing, the chain settled on Johnsonville pork sausage for its new offering, which has become a hit among Korean consumers. Product development and marketing support have been provided by USDA, the United Soybean Board, and the National Pork Board. Andy Tower, Vice President of International Market Development for the National Pork Board, sampled the pizza and learned more about the details in its development on a recent market visit in Korea. He says the partnership shows how the U.S. Meat Export Federation works to amplify the impact of checkoff dollars. Let's check in now about a story on U-Pick and some of the problem they've now noticed.
One of the best parts of fall is packing up the family and heading to the local orchard. But there are a few bad apples in our society that are causing some growers to change the way they think about doing business. Andy Lind is with Lind Fruit Farm in Licking County.
For 50 years, we've been doing U-Pick apples. And the way that we've designed it is people drive their car into the orchard, they park, they'll get out of their car, pick the apples, load back up in the car, and then drive to the checkout where they pay. Well, that just affords opportunity to people that are of the persuasion to steal.
The U-Pick farm recently went viral on social media after posting about an incident of theft at a level they have never seen before.
At the end of Labor Day, there was somebody that had $300 or $400 worth of fruit. They did not claim. We had observed them in the orchard. We knew they were hiding apples. And so at the checkout, once they establish what they picked and they pay, we say, can we just check your trunk? And they agree to that.
Lind and many growers like him are trying to find ways to thwart thieves and looking into technology to help minimize income loss due to theft. He says, though, there is no better way he can think of than the eyes and ears of the team he hires for the busiest time of the year.
We have to have good people working for us that portray those values that we have ourselves towards others. People are so intrigued with agricultural production. If you got good people, if you're people, you got it made on U-Pick. Or any kind of ag endeavor within a large metropolitan area. If you're people, you can do retail sales quite well.
Find out more about theft on U-Pick farms on the rise now at ohioagnet.com. I'm Ty Higgins reporting.
And thanks, Ty. Back with more after this.
Attention construction pros. Purple Wave Auction brings quality equipment to your fingertips. Join our bi-weekly online auctions featuring dozers, excavators, loaders, and more. We provide detailed listings, photos, and seller contact info. Inspect online or in person. With our no reserve policy, every item sells to the highest bidder. Visit purplewave.com today and see why informed builders choose Purple Wave. Transparent processes, real deals. Your next great purchase awaits. purplewave.com.
Think biodiesel is just another fuel? Think again. Biodiesel is Ohio innovation on the move. Clean, green, and built to keep diesel engines running strong. It's an engine booster, a soybean supporter, and an environmental champion all in one. Every gallon reduces emissions, strengthens Ohio farms, and powers your ride. Drive with purpose. Choose biodiesel. Learn how at soyohio.org. Lower than normal sea surface temperatures in the tropical Pacific Ocean have been in place for at least 2 months, but it is yet to become cold enough for long enough to classify as La Nina. According to NOAA, that happens when the average sea surface temperatures reach or fall below minus 0.5 degrees Celsius in a small body of water 5 degrees latitude north and south of the equator between 120 west and 165 west longitude over the course of 5 consecutive 3-month seasons. Atmospheric conditions also need to be met, but most meteorologists use sea surface temperatures as a proxy. However, Given this definition, you cannot be certain you are in La Nina or El Nino, the inverse of La Nina, until conditions have been present for a long period of time. Therefore, the strict definition is usually set aside to classify past events rather than focus on current and forecast events. Many times, forecasters will use a string of recent weekly temperatures and the forecast to approximate the overall impact of the Pacific Ocean on global weather patterns. Other considerations from ocean temperatures and currents can be used as well. When all that is considered, meteorologists can effectively classify whether or not the atmosphere is in La Nina state according to global weather patterns. And the U.S. Energy Information Administration said in its short-term energy outlook for October that it expected weaker prices for Brent and WTI in the fourth quarter due to the global stockpile situation in crude. EIA expects WTI to average $58 a barrel in the fourth quarter from $65.79 in the third quarter. For all of 2025, the U.S. crude benchmark is expected to average $65 a barrel compared to the 2024 average of $76.60. Inventory growth is projected to continue into next year, averaging 2.1 million barrels per day, the EIA said. The agency noted that the forecasted fourth quarter of 2025 build is higher than last month's estimate following the OPEC Plus hikes. Today's market analysis is brought to you by the Louis Dreyfus Company, excited to be building the newest state-of-the-art soybean crush facility in Upper Sandusky, Ohio. For marketing information on your beans to LDC, call 574-566-2113. Now here's Ryan Martin.
Grain markets finishing the Monday session mixed as we kicked off the work week. Futures were mixed overall as the flow of new investment into the commodity market slowed quite a bit, and the refilling of the U.S. cash grain pipeline is currently underway. Since last Wednesday, the 1st of October, new funds have been placed into the Board of Trade grain market. That was accelerated by a post on Truth Social by President Trump that soybeans would be added to the Chinese meeting before the APEC meeting with Chinese President Xi. Historically, any new investment enters and exits, and the Board of Trade grain room has a 3-day window of such. This would have been the 4th day on Monday, and the window for new investment seems to be closing. Add to that a little bit of interesting chatter that the Chinese delegation canceled most of their hotel rooms for the APEC conference at the end of the month. That led some to think that maybe the Trump-Xi arrangement is going to go by the wayside. However, there is a meeting for CEOs, I'm using bunny fingers here, CEOs ahead of the APEC. I think it's around the 27th or 28th that a Chinese meeting still may be on during. But that caused a little bit of chatter out there, and you got to feed the bull every day, and it wasn't much bull fodder as we went through Monday. Corn has not closed below its 50-day moving average since August. The market fell below it last week, but was unable to see a confirming settlement. The 50-day moving average came in at 415.25 yesterday on December futures. That's going to be closely watched all week. With a nice little bump at the end of the day, we were okay. Harvest accelerating quickly this past week, and after a slight pause, at least in our area, for rain here today, and I'll admit it's going to be spotty. It's back to game on afterwards. Yes, we're not going to be quite as warm. It's not going to be summer-like across the region, but we should be wide open on dry air and harvestability all the way till closer to the 21st or 22nd. That's going to weigh heavily again on these refilling of cash grain supplies. I'm Ryan Martin.
And thanks, Ryan. Today's market's brought to you by Seed Consultants. Simply better performance online at seedconsultants.com. Overnight at the open, December corn down 1/4 cent at $4.19.5. March down 3/4 at $4.35.5. The November new crop beans are down 3/4, trading $10.21 cent. January down a penny at $10.38. If you went out to March, you'd be down a penny and a half, but at $10.51.5. December wheat down a half at $5.06 1/4 cent. July new crop down 1/4 cent at $5.50 And if you carry that all the way to September, the new crop, it'd be 563.5, down 3/4. At yesterday's close, October cattle up $1.22 at $233.10. The October lean hogs down 47 cents at $97.85. November feeder cattle up $3.45, bringing it to $364.25. Thanks for joining us. Have a great day, everyone. I'm Dale Minyo. This is the Ohio AgNet.